All right, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here again. Let me share with you a couple of thoughts that I actually had while listening to Yuri, to Hélène, and to you all. First of all, I think on the general nature of the SDGs, I think it's super important that we are not starting to question them already. I had the impression a little bit when Martin was speaking about, you know, it is this and that, and I was also thinking, when you think about BMW in the classical old image, you could be even more ironic, asking where's the SDG on racetracks, so to say, you know. But this is not what it is all about. I consider this to be our compass for the next 15 years, actually. What shall we do with this planet, right? That's a global question to start with, and it relates to everyone. And it relates also to BMW, because we are a corporate entity that is actually, you know, active in 140 markets. We have 120,000 associates. We are selling well over 2 million cars. So we are a global player. We are part of this planet. We have global responsibility that goes far beyond the question of revenues, right? Because we can only, and that is the selfish part of it, we can only really work if there is a society out there, a global society that really is stable and safe and prosperous, and you name it. So that's one thing. Then you were mentioning the mayor of Bogota, right? And I can tell you a little bit of a story. I was responsible for governmental affairs for Latin America a while ago, and I was driving one night through Bogota, right? I was visiting Colombia, talking about biofuels with the government and all that good stuff. So I was driving through Bogota, and I saw a sign saying cars allowed to drive Monday, Wednesday, Friday with odd numbers, and those with even numbers are allowed to drive on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, you name it, right? The usual thing. And I was saying to myself, if Bogota is doing that, for whatever reason, let it be local emission, let it be traffic jam, let it be fuel consumption savings, whatever it is, but the cities are actually decisive when it comes to the classical BMW or car industry business case that is selling cars, right? So the city level is really, really important. I also had a discussion with the Los Angeles city government, together with our former foreign minister and one of the key founders of the Green Party in Germany, Joschka Fischer, which many of you may still remember as one of the key figures also in German and international policies. And I went with Joschka to speak with the Los Angeles city government about, you know, what can we do with the cities here? What can we do actually with the chaos that is taking place on Los Angeles city streets every day, basically. And they were keen to understand what we do as BMW, and we shared with them a couple of things and so on. But still, you know, I actually returned to Munich then saying we need to do more about cities. We really need to do more about cities. So we set up now a small entity to start with, but it's a competence center, urban mobility, so we actively work with cities about mobility solutions, right? So there's a structural topic there that relates already to the SDGs as well. We are really taking cities for granted now, and we really develop our relations with them and trying to figure out how we can deliver solutions. And that is one of the key parts that business can contribute, is innovation, is solutions. It's not only better technology in the sense of hardware, but it's also competence and experience. And I'm happy to see that we are working in that direction already, but we need to move on further. There's another little story that came to my mind. In 2002, we had the Johannesburg World Summit on Sustainable Development, and some of you, many of you maybe, have been there as well. And I was at the time responsible for our activities at the Johannesburg World Summit, and I framed it under the slogan of sustainability, it can be done, right? So that clearly also supports that idea of whatever you do in terms of sustainable development, business is ultimately the executor of it. We are key in doing it, and it's upon us to take that responsibility, right? So we need to do that, and we will do that, and we are actually in the process of doing it. When it comes to urban topics, we are obviously involved in many things, mainly topics like car sharing. BMW has a car sharing program. We have electric vehicles now in the car sharing programs. Obviously, this happens mainly at the time currently in Europe. So the latest thing in August was that we included 400 BMW i3 electric vehicles, so the smaller sibling of the i8 that you see outside, into the Copenhagen car sharing fleet. So taking away the emission topic, not so much CO2 on the city level, but NOx, you name it, the noise level, which is an emission too, right? Making cities livable. When you think about car sharing, you should bear in mind that it's not actually generating extra traffic, but it actually has the ability of taking 6 to 10 vehicles per car sharing vehicle off the road in terms of ownership. And you can always ask, hey, BMW, what's wrong with you guys? You're selling 2 million cars, so you're starting now programs that take cars away from the city roads? We understand that there is no way around that. We need to tackle these problems, these issues, and we need to figure out new business cases that actually make our life possible as a car manufacturer as well in the future. So there are plenty of activities out there that we are already doing. But I think the decisive thing for us in terms of the SDGs is really relating to them as a navigation pathway to the future, also of our cooperation, right? But what we need, and Peter Baker was actually mentioning that earlier in the first round of discussions that we had today, we need a little bit of a better understanding. We need to understand clearly, actually, as business, what this means. And that is not so much a policy topic, it's also a communication topic. So I don't want to point to the United Nations asking them to travel around to all the business entities in the world and give them lectures on things, right? So the World Business Council on Sustainable Development is there to do that job too, right? But I was inviting Peter just after the panel to come to Munich once the September rounds of SDGs are done, once Paris is done, later this year, to come to Munich to our headquarters and actually educate us there more about what this really means. And I think that's super decisive, because the SDGs are going to happen only if people are buying into it, and that means if they know what this is all about, right? So education, key factor for businesses, and ultimately, obviously, also for people out there. And you know, I'm personally willing, being in the sustainability business, so to say, for now like 15 years, to serve as a multiplier then. But again, you have to give input to those who then multiply the messaging, right? Let me just give you one or two sentences on the other topics out there. There are plenty of SDGs that relate to BMW, to the car manufacturing, and in a broader sense, production industry. But I think it's super important that we really go on with our efforts to preserve natural resources, right? So we are capable now to produce in a plant in Austria, for example, we are producing every year 1 million engines without any wastewater, right? So it's a closed water cycle, and we actually save water in huge terms, right? We are bringing down the CO2 emissions. We are running our Spartanburg factory in South Carolina in the US, where we are producing around 400,000 cars, to a large degree on landfill methane gas that would be wasted if we don't use it, right? So all these possibilities are out there, but we are certainly not at the end of our possibilities here, and we need to move that forward. Last point, and that shows probably that we in the business area, or we at BMW, or maybe I personally, have not yet the full picture, but the metrics that lie behind the 169 goals, right? So what are actually the hard criteria that you strive for? What are the numbers? You know, business always reacts on, 10% less, 20% less, 50% less. This is not yet totally transparent for me. It might be out there somewhere or in there somewhere, right? And I'm wondering if you can add to that probably later on when we are in the open discussion. But I think what is always dangerous is more general goals. Industry likes to be specific, and that gives us orientation then as well. So that is my reflection on the SDGs.